Hi, welcome to the podcast Beyond the Ballot, a Lone Wolf production. This is where we showcase local politics by providing a platform for elected officials and candidates. Today's episode is sponsored by Gina Arena. As a former candidate herself, she wants to emphasize the importance of exercising the right to vote. Your vote matters. Your neighbor's vote matters. Together, we make democracy stronger. One ride, one plan, one vote at a time. Another sponsor for today's episode is the North Salem Republican Town Committee in North Salem, New York. Please join them in their fundraiser on November 2nd. It is in support of their local candidates and committee at $30 per person, which includes food and wine, along with a silent auction. Sponsorship levels are also available. I'm proud to introduce the guest for today's show, Elena Muniz Walker, candidate for Peekskill City Council. Welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the getting to know you questions. Tell us about your personal background. How long have you lived in Peekskill, and what do you think makes this area so special?
Well, my personal background is I'm a Hispanic, I'm a Puerto Rican, or like my family in the island calls us, the New Yorkers, because I was born here and would go back and forth to the island to be with my relatives and my extended family. So I kind of grew up in both worlds. My mom's from Barranquitas, which is the middle of the island, up in the mountains region, has a long history involved in political strife in the island. My father's from the, I would say, the other end of the island, and he's from Aguadilla. And I still have my family home there that belonged to my grandmother, Elena Cortez. And of course, I'm named after her because I'm her first grandchild. I have a big background in industrial engineering and product development, and I've worked on several international companies, traveling extensively, mostly abroad. And my career has a big background in advocacy and working with adults and children with disabilities, something that came upon because I actually have my daughter, my only child, is an adult with disabilities now. So it's like when I learned about it, you think you're going to France, but you end up in Switzerland kind of thing. It's a poem that we learn as parents with disabilities to understand that, okay, maybe we didn't end up where we wanted to be, but we do end up with beautiful children.
Of course.
And each one of them has different talents. And if many parents who have children who have disabilities, and it doesn't matter because you got a full spectrum, there is a talent for each of them. So that's one of the things I learned about my daughter. I've been a resident of Peekskill about 37 years. Wow. My husband and I were looking to get married and to buy our first home. And we went around, and of course, he didn't want to go across any bridges because he worked for the Department of Sanitation. So we ended up in Peekskill, and we saw this development. It was a hole in the ground when we first came up here. So slowly but surely, we pulled our stuff together when we bought this home. And then when we decided to get married, we didn't necessarily want to go to the churches where we actually came from in the Bronx. And we picked Assumption Church, and we got married there. And his uncle was a priest and married us. Peekskill to me was very special location. It wasn't so much that, you could commute because of the train there and everything, but I loved when we were going around the city and we saw such a diverse mix of a community. We got to meet some people, by going to restaurants and stuff like that. And we just liked the style and the look and it seemed more like home. And one of the wonderful things that I liked about it is I could go around Peekskill and find things that I was used to purchasing, right in the city. And it was such I said, this is perfect. This works for us, And so that's kind of what made us go to Peekskill.
Now, who were the mentors or role models in your life that had made a difference?
Okay, well, my biggest mentor, I want to say, was my mother, was my mom. She only had a 5th grade education, had 7 children, divorced pretty early in life. And she raised us saying, okay, I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that, but you have the possibility to do anything, So she emphasized education. She emphasized that, if you needed friends, you have a whole slew of people in your own household. And she always strived to make sure that who we associated with in our lives was someone positive. Okay. She emphasized faith, so church was a big part of it, but she was an activist. So even with her limited English, she PTA, going to fundraisers or working with local people in campaigns for whatever office. She was a really devout Democrat, which, I got to learn that from her and experience. I mean, as soon as we turned 18, you had to register to vote.
So how old were you when you came to the United States?
So I was born here, and going back and forth, I think I started staying here when I was about 6 years old, because then school starts and, and everything, because I really didn't have no pre-K or anything else. So we started, and then once school started, but that didn't mean that, okay, since school broke, some of us went to that grandparent or that other grandparent. So So basically in my household, we spoke only Spanish. So learning English was, once we really got to school and everything, that's when we started learning English. And I sort of perfected my English and in singing, because my mother believed in singing. And so the one thing that used to drive her crazy is when I would sing Patsy Cline's songs, because I could enunciate. So, but she was my biggest inspiration. And then through the years, as I grew older and I started getting more involved in political things and everything, and my job and my careers, I had a lot of mentors in schools. I was able to skip schools because the school district, I had school teachers that said, Elena's
so what do you
IQ.
mean? You skipped grades?
I skipped grades, yeah. I had teachers that went to my parents and said, her IQ's too high. She can't be in this grade.
Wow.
And so that came about because I had suffered a couple of accidents. And, when you can't go anywhere or you got your own school, so what do? Read. My mother was a big thing about getting books and do your math and everything else. She made us do our homework assignments. The older ones do it on a blackboard so the younger ones could see it. So by the time I got to first grade or everything, I could read, write, do my math.
So how old were you when you graduated from high school?
I was actually 16 because my birthday is in July. Wow. So and it was easy. I went to a high school, Louis V. Brandeis is no longer, because they had a pilot program for engineering or it's drafting or whatever. It was related to a couple of the colleges. So basically I would go to homeroom, take these college courses, and I wasn't really mixed up. I passed my older sister. So in school.
How did you feel about that? Was she...
Well, she says, well, if you're that good, you can do my homework, right?
So besides that, which is tremendous, skipping grades, that's incredible. Is there anything about yourself that people might not know or find interesting?
Well, like I said, we lived from Brooklyn, Manhattan, and then the Bronx, and it usually.
So you almost hit every borough.
Yeah, I almost hit every borough, and a lot of it had to do with, could she find an apartment that was affordable, that could fit all of us? I mean, we kind of lived there and everything else. She mended clothes, she cooked at the church, and people would pay her because she was a fantastic cook. She made pastries, she made pasteles, she made all of this stuff. And at the end of the month, sometimes the SNAP benefits didn't, what they call SNAP now, didn't really last. So, I'm not embarrassed to say that we would go to the markets and dumpster dive just to feed the rest of us for the end of the month, because you'd be surprised what people throw away.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Down to the business. Please tell us you touched a little bit about your professional experience, but if you could elaborate a little bit about that and what has specifically prepared you for the role to serve on the city council.
Well, basically, I have a big career in engineering. It's product development, costing, and everything. So it's a completion from the product, from conception to market. So that involves every aspect. I mean, labor, financials, cost estimation, working with contractors, making purchasing agreements, even building and construction. I would go to these plants, some where we own, some that were contractors, and just establish the manuals and everything else, because we had to deliver to the customer a product. But because I worked for companies that were interested in their image, I had to make sure that they were labor inclusive as far as how they treated the workers, OSHA standards. I would go into factories and I would change the setup because it was not safe, or put machinery in, bring in stuff like that. At one point, I was working for a company in Haiti that I would travel from the Dominican Republic in a short plane to go into Haiti. And when they had several crises, I was able to work with my company to deliver food items and clothing and to the people, to the workers in the plant, because that way we guaranteed that in the shipments. And you're dealing with countries that wasn't so great about getting in product or getting stuff out. There was a lot of governmental corruption. So in a sense, I was kind of exposed to a lot of that.
Were any of those facilities located in the United States as well, domestically?
Yes, they had plants in Pennsylvania, down in South Carolina.
And did they experience this same type of problems?
Yeah, a lot of trying to get employees, trying to stay afloat, contractors. So you kind of dealt with them to bring a product that number one, that you could get in and out in a timely manner, but products that you knew they could handle and that give them a volume so that it was working not just for my company, but for them.
Can you give us an example of one of those products?
Mostly I did a lot of lingerie products. I did do some with a company that did other kinds of products other than lingerie. I did work with companies that did some international products. So I did shower curtains and drapery. I actually drew a design and opened a plant in Sardis, Mississippi. That was my first thing. And I was like 21. They said, okay, we need you to learn all of this about our company. And because you're not spoiled or anything else, you can take the best of what we have here in our manufacturing facility here in Brooklyn. And we want to expand. So we're building a brand new from the ground up. And I worked with the building engineers. I still have my drawings. I'm very proud of doing that. But I was involved. And then I went down there and brought all the equipment. And I was part of the engineering training of all these employees to get in there. And the irony of that situation was, because I was a minority, and you're talking about the South at the time, which I really didn't comprehend coming from New York, is that I met a quota, in the South. It was strange things to me. It was a really kind of experience that I still keep to today, and understand that things have changed so much since then. And you're not talking that much a difference, because I'm just 65 now and in my 20s, so how much things have changed that kind of stuff no longer exists anymore.
That's great to hear that. So it's obviously you're at least bilingual, you're multilingual, I've heard, right? Is there anyone else that sits on the board or running in opposition that is proficient in multiple languages?
As far as I understand, currently the only sitting council member who's running as an independent, he's bilingual. About the other members, I'm not so sure. A lot of people today are taking Spanish as a second language. I'm quite sure that each sitting council member might know a little bit of words to speak briefly to people, but to be fully immersed in the language, reading, writing, or anything else, I would say no.
And that's a major advantage for you to serve your constituents, because Peekskill is very eclectic.
Exactly. And it's kind of what my mother kind of prided us on. And a lot of people come and assimilate, but my mother was always, you have to keep learning your own language and reading and writing. I do remember going to public school and saying, oh, no, you can't take Spanish class because it would be unfair to the other students because you can speak it. And my mother went after the Board of Education saying, what does speaking have to do with reading and writing? So that was a very key thing, and it set me off to continue my language and really emphasize to even young people today, advocate that they should keep their language, be proficient in English, learn the language, but keep your language because the opportunities are vast.
Right. So you're no stranger to serving the community and engaging in philanthropical work. Could you elaborate on this?
Well, as I started to live in Peekskill, I got to know a lot of people, some of my neighbors and stuff like that were involved with different groups. And they would say, oh, Elena, can you do this? You know, like when my daughter went to the school, Clearview, and I was working for, and I kind of say it, Haynes Corporation, they were doing fundraisers. And can you get product and this and that we could, you know, do for a tag sale? And I was able, through my company and their generosity, when they would finish with demonstrations or showroom stuff, I got a lot of designers and a lot of people to just give me like sample garments and everything. And and these are like never touched by anyone that we could do on a tag sale. So that was like the beginning. And then, oh, Elena, you know, can you sew? So, you know, I started working with religious ed, and I would sew things for gowns for communion and confirmation services. Oh, well, with the sisters, can you make something for the altar? And I actually did some altar tabernacles. Oh, you have an embroidery machine. Can you put tags that say for donation, donated by on the altar server robes that we're going to, so that people have it. So it just started cyclically. And as I got to do, you know, fundraisers for, you know, Birthright, I did for United for the Troops. I actually started, you know, just as an exercise and making wreaths. So then someone said, oh, can you donate a wreath for the church for this function and that function, and make it? And people actually loved it, and they would raffle it off, and it's just cycled. And my husband, when he retired and became part of the fire department, then next you know, they're doing something else. And so it's just like you got two for one. And, oh, can she do this? Can she do that? Can your wife do this? And did
you ever say no? It sounds like you never said no to anything.
No, the problem is, my husband and I kind of never say no because like I said, when my daughter was diagnosed, I went to a lot of people. I got a lot of great advice. And I felt like the one thing I did learn is you got to pay it forward. When I started learning to be advocacy work and I went around to people, I found out, wow, they don't really have anyone that speaks Spanish. Elena, you speak Spanish. Can you deal with these parents that are having problems with IEP or represent them? So I would go, because a lot of the schools were not prepared with translators or anybody who specifically could translate. And the parents would sit there and people would be talking around them and they don't know the conversation. So I didn't think that was fair to them. So I would go and advocate. Offer my, and it was like, and I did stuff pro bono because people helped me and didn't charge. So I got a relationship with a lot of different agencies and groups and stuff like that. But like I said, my biggest thing is financials. I became treasurer for different groups because my skill with numbers and being able to go after costs and look at vendors and say, what's the best deal we can do? And a lot of times is, like, okay, I did it myself. At home, I can do my own, graphics. I can do a lot of stuff and personally did it myself.
Wow. That's very impressive. As I'm speaking to you, you're just such a humble person, so down to earth. There's no arrogance about you, and you're super intelligent, like just the whole package, That's that. I just had to say that, really. Just such a wonderful person.
I've kind of heard that from people, but the one thing my mom always says, never go around raising flags about yourself. Just do what people do and everything will come back to you.
Yeah. You're just so down to earth, really. So as mentioned, with all your humanitarian work, and more recently with door knocking, canvassing throughout the community, what are some of the major concerns you're hearing from the people of Peekskill?
Well, I get a mixed bag from different people, but what I'm hearing is that the major concern is the quality of life, safety, the infrastructure. Things have deteriorated a lot. And nothing is, they're talking about developers and investing and bonding, but the day-to-day stuff is not happening. People are living in conditions, especially our seniors, and in the housing, and it's risky. I mean, being part of the Office of Emergency Management, because someone asked me, oh, your wife translate, could she work with Red Cross and take the training and come out on fire? I'm learning that, a lot of these people are really being neglected. And coming from my background, you just don't forget where you started and say to the people, well, I'm a homeowner, I'm this, I'm now middle class. You don't forget that. You know their struggles.
Some people might.
Yeah, I can't. And so the youth, the crime, the trash, the constant development, the transparency that was supposedly promised, they're not getting. They find out things and all of a sudden there's an agenda item and we're passing this and we're passing that. And a lot of people are concerned that right now Peekskill is being oversaturated by the cannabis. Yes, it's legalized. And honestly, there are a lot of people who have used the product with cancer and epilepsy and everything that works for them.
In a responsible way.
In a responsible way. But now, I mean, Peekskill is 5.7 miles at the rate. Someone did a study, and one of the neighbors that are concerned about another growery coming up on Washington Street, and they did analysis right now at the rate they're going, and they're proposing Peekskill will have 22% of the cannabis of Westchester somewhere, either a growery or a dispensary, right in Peekskill. Wow. It's 5.7 miles with maybe a population of 26,000. So when you do the math, it doesn't make sense.
I wonder, and I wouldn't expect you have an answer for this, but with the popping up of cannabis facilities, if the DUI rate is increasing as well.
Yeah, well, they've always had a problem with DUI, and it's involving everything, alcoholism, and maybe now an influx of drugs. All I do know is that we're having issues with children with EDPs. They say it was because of COVID, and I'm just saying, and the city's idea of controlling that, because people complain that they have like open seating out in the street still, they close the street, and people can't sit because all they do is smell, and it's not skunk. That, well, we're going to ban it just like we ban cigarettes, and we're going to do a zone and ban it, but they're not really looking at the issues that homeowners, I mean, there was one lady who was from the Caribbean, and I bought my home, and you're putting this dispensary literally in my backyard, and there's still a debate, but what they did now is it's going to be on Tuesday night, and they're saying, well, we're taking public hearing is open, but we're only taking written comments. And the problem a lot of people have with that is, who sees the written comments? What are they? Because they won't read it. Oh, we received so many comments, but no one's hearing the voices of those citizens.
So it's actually not a public hearing? Like no one's going to be able to speak in person?
On that particular one, no. They said, well, because they had hours on end on 2 public hearings, and they were there all night, till 10:30 at night, which I sit through almost all the meetings, because sometimes they do like what I call the happy slappy cappy. Someone said the word to me, my good dear friend, and they have all of these things during a meeting and presentations and honorees, and then that takes up. Meeting starts at 6:30, and the really agenda items doesn't start to 8. And people can't stay up that late.
Yeah. I looked a little bit into your campaign planks. Fiscal sanity and responsibility. What do you mean exactly by that?
Well, right now we're looking at them moving around money. There was a DRI money that was awarded $10 million. And that seems to be shifting here, there. And no one's responsible for anything. I had someone who was going to run a campaign with me and showed that they had this whole advertising logo with someone else that, and they said, oh, well, we only gave them $40 million, but we're going to go with someone else to do this logo thing. And it was actually $40,000. Let me correct it. And it was actually $80,000 that they paid for nothing. They got nothing from it. So now they went to another corporate company from Canada, and they came out with these ideas, and they presented it at a meeting, and the people in Peekskill are looking like, what? That's not Peekskill. And it was like, and they did a survey. The city does surveys, but they do it on social media, which leaves out a lot of people that don't go on social, people that work. And so they got the population of 20, we got 400 responses, and from the 400 responses, we're going to go in this direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, if you're going to do something like that, it really needs to push the whole community. When these cannabis and public hearings were happening, a lot of people didn't realize it until they saw a sign saying this coming over here. And how do I comment on it?
So what do you think is the best way to deliver messages to the constituents?
I think really, and someone brought it up, and I totally agree, that the council or whoever's doing the communications from the city hall really needs to directly get to the residents. And it's not
How
like
would you
they
do
don't,
that? By hand, with mail, or
mail, whatever it takes. But if you want community involvement, if you're saying this is the direction we need to go because it's either going to approve or this business is going to come, the people that are going to be majorly affected need to know.
Of course.
And they're not. And they're not aware. I mean,
and that's by design,
and
most likely.
Yeah, they're changing zoning, because they work with one group and not the other group.
Right.
And it's sort of like one directional. I think we can really work with all the groups that are in the city, but it means everyone being involved.
Right.
And that's my key thing that I want. Because I talk about it's really simplistic. It's time for a change. It's time for a balance. Your vote does matter. And if you can't accept what's going on, if you're saying that there needs to be a change, and it's not me, we have the power to make those changes together.
Also, another plank of yours is clean and safe streets. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, a lot of people are saying, like the businesses downtown, the flea market was getting bigger and bigger and expanding in. There's a small business owners that are there saying, whoever's bringing the flea market in is bringing products that the storefronts have. And it was a conflict. How can you have a flea market that's taking, and some people would write, well, some of those businesses are not open on Sunday, so who cares? People can shop for stuff and maybe they can't get it somewhere else. But is that what we want to do? Then it was taking away parking and then cracking down. So, yeah.
So how's the parking situation there?
The parking situation is horrendous. To drive downtown, they've made streets that used to be two-way, one-way. Even our emergency services have to kind of circle around when certain streets are now closed off. After flea markets and after all of these small businesses close, people are downtown, have no place really to do their refuge. So they're using public. And the people who go to these flea markets or whatever, they clean up. There's no one cleaning up after them. They open these things on the weekend and there's no public restrooms.
Oh, geez.
There's no porta potty. So, yeah.
But are they selling any beverages or food or anything like that? Oh, so I would think that that's a requirement. If you have a vendor that is distributing food, selling food, you would have to have a porta potty.
Yeah, right. I thought
that was a regulation. Because I'll tell you this. When my dad, when he retired, he had a little hot dog truck and he would sell at flea markets, and they had to assign a porta potty by his operation, and he held the key for the porta potty. So that's how I know. But
yeah, no, Peekskill is lacking on that. When they even do things at the riverfront, and people can tell you the facilities down at the park and everything where children go and everything was so unkept,
that's
unclean.
Terrible. That's like having no pride or respect for the community.
No. And listen, you get people from all over. And yes, some people get inebriated or whatever you want to call it. So maybe they're not as careful. And some people say, well, it's, a cultural thing that people are trashy. No,
I think it's just being human. Like,
that's
just have respect.
Right. Just have respect. And a lot of people know. I mean, when we grew up, when I grew up, talk about, don't cross in the middle of the street and take care of your. If we're not educating people on what they need to do, then they're not taking a care of saying, I remember my husband giving a class to my daughter's school, and because he worked in the recycling and the garbage, he brought pictures of this is how much garbage gets collected in one day at one facility. And this is what you need to do. And about recycle. No one's teaching those things anymore. Basic. It's just like home ed. You know, not everyone has to go to college. Why don't we teach?
Yeah, that has gone away. Gone. Yeah, it's gone, that program.
How to do a checkbook.
I think Mayapack, if I remember, I think I read that they're going to try to implement like a financial type of class, because, you know, that is obviously like helpful for the generations. Like, they don't know how to manage things that are realistic.
We have a youth bureau, and they're teaching, they're not teaching those basic kind of skills. They're doing a program where we got a program where we're going to teach people how to work in a restaurant and be cooks and stuff like that. Okay, that's nice. But not everything in Peekskill is restaurant. And restaurant businesses are coming back. But when people don't have excessive funds to spend, most people are just going to go, you know, DoorDash or whatever else. You know, you've got to look at what is the trend and say, is this the best way to get these children or these young people employment or careers other than...
To give them a future.
Give them a future. And a lot of it starts with the basics.
Now, what about infrastructure investment?
Okay, what we do have a lot of is problems with water main breaks and everything else. We had a very tragic fire up in Hillside at a development, and the biggest thing was happening is there was no water.
Oh, geez.
So they had to go throw hoses across 9 on the extension to get to hydrants across the road to get water, and the whole place burnt down. And I was watching, and I was working with the Red Cross, and do you think I'll be able to get back to my apartment? I left.
And everyone was okay though. No one was.
People
harmed?
got out. No one got hurt. But you know, and you hate to tell the person everything's gone.
That's terrible.
Everything's gone.
I can't imagine.
It was like from 3:00 in the morning till I think by the time they cleared the scene and the smoke, and we get mutual aid. But so now we have a career chief that we have to have tankers and everything. I can't tell you how many people say, there's a water main break, and you get a call from the city. There's a water main, or we're flushing the hydrants, and you might have brown water or little water or no water. But right now, they bonded $11.4 million to fix the water and sewer at the riverfront. And a lot of people are seeing that they're doing that for this new development idea that they're wanting at the riverfront. So we'll fix the infrastructure downtown, down by the river, by the rail station, because we're going to build a hotel and 2 or 3 more developments with apartments and everything. And it gets to the point where, you know, people, why are you not investing where
people that have been here?
Have been here, right.
I just want to take a brief moment to kindly thank the sponsors of today's episode. Gina Arena, as a former candidate herself, she wants to emphasize the importance of exercising the right to vote. Your vote matters. Your neighbors' votes matter. Together, we make democracy stronger. One ride, one plan, one vote at a time. And our other sponsor for today's show, the North Salem Republican Town Committee in North Salem, New York. Please join them in their fundraiser on November 2nd. It is in support of their local candidates and committee at $30 per person, which includes food and wine, along with the silent auction. Sponsorship levels are also available. So you had mentioned the word transparency earlier, and that is a buzzword for sure in the political sphere. I would assume that complete transparency is something you would promise your constituents. How would you go about it?
Well, I learned that when it comes to transparency, the key issue is making yourself available to the people, even those that don't agree with you. And it's really important. So I would continue to make my page available to people, my Gmail, because if I get in City Hall, they're going to give me a city Gmail or whatever.
So you're going to keep a personal email?
I'm going to keep a personal email. People know that they can PM me and everything else. I'm pretty visible in town. I've always been visible in town. I'm approachable, you know, even the angry people, you know, I'm not afraid. And maybe that's because I'm a Bronx girl originally, but, you know, but even the angry people need to have their voices heard. You know, I mean, I want to be able to make confidentially that the people know that they can talk to me. I might not be able to do much because I'll be one of 7.
Right.
And the one thing that I learned in watching them in City Hall all these years is they go, we're going to executive section to discuss matters of da-da-da. So that locks you in as a council person that you can't speak about something,
right?
But at the same time, I can even, I would, and I'm daring enough to say that based on our attorney, we can't talk about that particular issue because we brought it up in executive session. But of course, you as a constituent, you can speak freely about what you think your concern is. And I would openly tell people to come forth. You've got an issue. We need to get people to come to City Hall. They're so used to people not coming in and not talking, whether they speak no English or they're afraid of retaliation.
Right, challenging the process.
And we need to know that you can challenge the process. There should be no retaliation to you. It shouldn't be all one party. It should be a common goal to make Peekskill successful. And that's my major thing.
As mentioned, you have been very involved in the community of Peekskill for a very long time, and more specifically have championed by means of engagement with the current city council. What are some of the criticisms that you have for the current city council?
Well, like I said in the beginning, my biggest criticism is that they take a city meeting, which we're supposed to talk about city business or agenda items or proposals that they want to put forward for the betterment of Peekskill. But they take the time to we're honoring this group and we're doing this presentation and and that takes hours away from them. If you want to do that, fine. If you want people to honor, I'm sure that if I was in the city council, I might have somebody that I would want to give a certificate or an honor. But there's time for that, separate from when it comes to city business. We should concentrate on city business during what they call cows or public council meetings. Should stay business related. All that other stuff for taking pictures and presentations and proclamations, that should not be part of the meeting because we're taking away from the people being able to bring up their issues. Remember, people, they have this 3-minute rule and they watch that clock, clink, clink, clink. And half the time when I speak, I have to say, well, you're answering me, and I reclaim my time. I actually put my phone with my clock running, and if they start talking, I stop my clock and I said, well, you're 3 minutes. No, actually, I have 1.5 minutes yet left because you started talking. You decided to respond instead of letting me finish. So I will go. And I have done where I say, well, I'm coming here and I will give you the English version of what I'm going to speak of because I'm going to be reading it in Spanish.
Oh, they don't give you 6 minutes.
Nope.
You could do 3 in English, 3 in Spanish.
Nope.
No.
But I have had the city council or person have come, well, Elena, would you mind getting up and translating what this person is saying? So we'll go over the minutes. But then they have a lot of people that are their hoorah group. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're running the stopwatch and, okay, the 5 minutes, 8 minutes. And they're allowed to speak.
There's a bias of favoritism.
There's a little bias of favoritism, which is one of my other stuff that I talk about. And then, they ran on the thing about transparency, but yet on key commissions and councils or groups that they have that supposedly all volunteers, the city charter specifically says they can't all be of one party. Okay. So what they do is they change their registrations. All of a sudden, this is working parties and she was a Democrat and this one was that. And I have been through all these years there's a call for this commission or that. Remember, I'm an engineer. I work in the fashion industry, so I can work with artists. I have applied for, numerous amount of committees or commissions, and I'm an advocate. And for some reason, I've gotten interviewed maybe 3 times for some of these things and never got appointed.
Wow. That's a real shame.
It is. It is. And people say, well, Elena, they'll write me, oh, look, this is an opening. Send in your resume. I said, they probably have about 40 copies of my resume by now.
Wow. So the community of Peekskill, like we have said, is very eclectic and tends to be actually more Democratic than Republican in their voting records, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is a two-pronged question. The first question is slightly controversial. You recently were awarded an endorsement from Congressman Mike Lawler. Lawler is a Republican and has been seen as a figure that is closely associated with President Trump. President Trump, his image is very contentious and polarizing. Do you think this endorsement hinders your campaign?
Well, in a way, I thought about that, and it might have hindered my campaign because of the heavy number of attacks that Congressman Lawler has been getting on anything he posts. And the advertisements from the DNC alone, I'm just like, my husband watches them. Here goes another one.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, he still represents the community. He's still our congressman. And he has always been a person of open dialogue. You know, if you can't reach him or if he doesn't do a town hall, he's sent his representatives. They go there. And I can't tell you how many of his great people go there and they actually face these groups of people, you know, coming after them. But we're here to get the information. If you give us the information, we can see what we can do. I know for a fact that I have brought a lot of things to his attention and or communicated with people that they can reach out to some of his staff with their issues. And I have never gotten a feedback from anyone saying, well, it didn't work and I wasn't satisfied or anything like that. So I will take his endorsement, and people need to understand we in New York or we in this country are a mix of everybody. And we can't be biased without listening. He is really bipartisan. He's really trying to do things. So no, I'll take his endorsement, and people understand that I work across the spectrum. I am very bipartisan, and I will reach out and work. I mean, like I said, I'm running against the mayors and her council people, but she knows she can talk to me. She's always been approachable, and anybody who's sat on city council, I've had one of the mayors come after me at a meeting, you know, get her arrested, you know, but other people stand up. Well, wait a second. Why are you going after her like that? Because you don't want to listen to him. I go by the law.
It's a scare tactic.
It is
perhaps.
a scare
so
tactic.
Other people, they don't stand up for what they want, want to speak about.
That's it. So I mean, I got to the point in my life and being in situations like I was in Mexico when they had the earthquake and everybody thought I was gone. And I traveled across country in a truck to get to the border, to get back home, where I'm not afraid of anything.
Yeah,
anymore.
you're a strong lady, very strong.
I was in the Philippines when Marcos was, and we were held at gunpoint in the lobby of the hotel. And, well, the soldiers came, they got us free. I was able to change from my pajamas to my clothes, and I got home.
So when I asked that question, is there anything interesting about you? You didn't.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have a great response, to
adversity.
And I've always, my husband and I are with yin and yang. I'm more of the glasses always half full. There's always something on the other side. And he's like, the glass is empty. And I don't know what's going on.
He might say he's the realistic one, maybe.
Yeah,
that's what the negative, the half glass empty people, that's their response.
And I can kind of always laugh at a situation or say, okay, well, this is the bad road. Let's look at where can we go from here?
That's great. You never give up. No. Never give up. So the second question is that given the majority of people in Peekskill are Democrats, what has been your response from the community as you campaign? Like, what have you been hearing?
What I've been hearing, amazingly so, that people have told me that the actual candidates that the mayor is running with were not selected by their own party. From Peekskill. So there's a lot of people that are disgruntled. A lot of people saying they don't know what direction they're going to. And they're not supportive of what's been going, even though they voted that way the last time. They're considering maybe we shouldn't. And I tell them, listen, you have to go with what your heart. I'm not asking you to change your
party,
registration. Right. And you could be Democratic Socialist for all I care. But where do you see yourself going?
What matters to you?
What matters to you? And if you're not seeing it, then give me a shot.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying, I'm so glad you did this. I never thought another Republican would come up and do any of this. And I said, yeah, I'm Republican because that's the line I got on it. But I'm a Peekskill person first. And yeah, there's a lot of values, my core values, in faith, family, and everything are probably what swayed me away from being a Democrat. But that's not everything that I'm about.
Before we conclude this episode, are there any other campaign talking points or a final message that you'd want to share?
Well, I just really want to let the people of Peekskill know that if they're tired of the city council and that just kowtows to rubber stamping things and going with what stuff goes on, that if you don't agree, don't give up on Peekskill. Don't just pack up and go. I won't, I don't plan to. Give me a chance in the city council to address and work with changes that all of us need.
What is your website, Facebook, Instagram account that people can search and learn more about you and your campaign?
Okay, so my Facebook, my Gmail is friendsofemw@gmail.com. And my Facebook page is Elena Muniz Walker. So, and you can find me on that. You can PM me. I made it a public page, so a lot of people can go on and just ask me questions or just answer any of one of my posts, and I will try to respond. I'm sort of like a person that works, 24/7, and especially now that my husband got hurt. So 4 hours of sleep is generous right now.
The general election is November 4th. Early voting has started and is in effect until November 2nd. There you have it, folks. Elena Muniz Walker, candidate for Peekskill City Council, deeply rooted in her community. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity, and for Gina and all the other sponsors. We need to work together in cross communities, and Peekskill is still part of Westchester, and Cortland and Yorktown and Buchanan and everything else. We can strive to make Westchester a better community.
Well said. If anyone, a business owner or individual, would be interested in sponsoring future episodes, please reach out to us. Also, if you live in Westchester or Putnam County and would like to come on the show as a guest to discuss any concerns, ideas, or even to promote an upcoming event, we'd love to have you. Thank you for watching the podcast Beyond the Ballot. Like, subscribe, and leave us your comments. Thank you.